Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, and today I'm hanging out with Sean McGovern. Hopefully, I have that right, and I'm not getting it wrong. In my Gmail account, it's Sean McG. So,
Yeah.
and you're a blogger. You're over there on the DMs Guild. You're pretty prolific. But you came you came with highly recommended from Jim Davis of WebDM. So I'm like, got to get Sean on. Fortunately, you actually reached out to me, so it made it even easier.
Yes, it did. They were those two guys are hilarious. I could talk to them. We talked for 2 hours. I could have talked to them for all day, you know.
Yeah, those guys are fun. Travis plays in one of my games, in our Marvel Phase Rip game. We're doing a Saver Dice with them, and I think their gaming style is very similar to our home group. So, so I figured, Nerdarchy sucks at pre-planned written adventures. We're not really into them. So I figure, you know what? We always get asked questions about running them and how to do them well, and we're like, guys, do you even watch any of our content? Because we buy them all, we cherry pick them, and we like to steal things from them. I was so happy when I got to use pixie dust from Storm of King's Thunder.
Yeah.
That was a good use of $50. But our thing is we homebrew everything, and I'm lazy. That's why I don't like pre-written adventures. Now, I think I know a lot of GMs think they're easier to use, but I'm like, well, if I use it, then I got to read the whole thing, then I got to brush up on the section we're going to do, and then I'm probably going to want to change things for my players and tailor it to them a little bit. It just seems like a lot of work. I could just start running with an idea or two and run my games that way. But apparently, it sounds like you're an expert when it comes to running from pre-written stuff. You're writing guides on it and everything. So I figured you'd be the guy to ask questions.
Well, one of the reasons I use published adventures is because I can't wing it. I'm not confident in my ability to just sit down at a table with nothing and run a game. I remember, actually, I was at a con a long time ago. We sat down and we played a Call of Cthulhu game. And it was fun. At the end, the DM revealed that he hadn't read the adventure and he made it up right there. And the other players were impressed, but I was angry because I paid for this. And if it was that good, how much better would it have been if you actually prepared? You know what I mean? So that kind of thing always bothered me because I feel like the DM it's the DM's job to put in a good, solid effort to make sure that the game is good. You know what I mean? And you can kind of tell a lot of times when a DM is filibustering a session, they don't have any ideas, so they just throw a long fight at you, and when I play those, I just want to go home. It's like, well, we're not getting anything done today, so I'm just going to go, you know what I mean? And so for me, that was one thing. Here's another thing why I always run published adventures. Once you run your first campaign to completion, right? That's usually a story where it's there's a big bad guy trying to rule the world or whatever, and you defeat him, right? And the second campaign might be the sequel, and you do it again. And after that, it's well, once you do the idea you've always wanted to do, what do you do now? You know what I mean? And so then it's it's so much easier for me to just get ideas from other adventures where people sat down and spent a lot of time coming up with cool ideas. And there's so many choices out there, you know what I mean? So it's ever since then, and I also have a thing about official adventures. I really enjoy running official D&D adventures and talking to other people who have played them or ran them. That's a lot of fun to me. It's like Tomb of Horrors. You can ask anybody, what did you do when you got to this room? You know what I mean? Everybody has a different story. You know what I mean?
Does it feel more legit that way too?
For me, yes. And also what I learned was DMs are like directors of movies. You can give two DMs the same adventure and it will be completely different. Like if you gave Quentin Tarantino a script and you gave Michael Bay the same script, those are two completely different movies. You know what I mean? And that's another fun thing about DMs. You can watch anybody online run a game. None of the Tomb of Annihilation games online are similar at all. They're all completely different. They're all doing their own thing because every DM has their own take and what they think is cool. And then, the players, you never know. And that's the other thing. You never know what a player's going to do. You can never guess. Almost every session, they do things that no matter how much time you prepare, you're like, oh my, I can't believe it. And that's where the fun of it comes in for me, for D&D. Is like, nobody knows how it's going to end. That's the fun part of D&D to me. We both sit down at the table and we just see what happens, you know. I love that. I think that's a lot of fun.
Now, I will say, like, I, for a very long time, did write everything out. But I've also been gaming a long time. I'm 42. I was first exposed to the game when I was 5 or 6. You know, I played with some really good GMs early on. And I think there's also ways we even did a series on what to work on, you know, which kind of like, it's about building a toolbox in order to run from. So like you can do that as well and put a lot of work into that. And Sly Flourish also talks a lot about, you know, that kind of stuff. Work on stuff and you don't prep. It's just that you don't write out adventures per se. You know, the same way.
Yeah, preparing to be unprepared is like a thing. I think every DM should have a list of names, because, you know, when you're playing D&D and the group talks to some guy and the DM can't think of a name, so they just call him Bob. Like, that's funny one time, but it gets old real quick. You know what I mean? So, and that's what's the good thing about Xanathars, is there's pages and pages of names, so you can just rip one out of there real quick, you know, and you're good to go. So you should always, I think you should always have a list of names, a couple monsters that you think are cool that fit kind of in the area you're running, a couple magic items to give out. I know you had mentioned earlier, you know, when you're winging it, it's hard to hand out magic items. That's not something you can kind of pull out of your head, you know, right there. And so I would say, and also I think it's a good idea to always have a backup scenario in mind. So if things go completely off the rails, you have something that you can just place in there that would fit almost anywhere. You know what I mean? And like, if you're coming up with a scenario like that, all you have to do is make sure it's based on the villain's motivations and not a location. So it doesn't matter where they are. It's just this villain's trying to do this wherever you are. And so that way, you know, it's all about surviving that session. And the one thing I also think, sometimes when a session goes wacky, you know, and you're like, oh my God, we're doing, I am not ready for this. You know, if you just tell your group, okay, let's take like a 5-minute break, you know, and they're, you know, they go to the bathroom or whatever. And you're like amazed at how much you can come up with in 5 minutes, you know, and you're good for the rest of the session. It's amazing to me. So, but yeah, I get real panicky. That's why I always run published adventures, because I get worried that I'm not going to be able to create something that's good enough. You know what I mean? And I also never want to get into that situation where I'm trying to run out the clock, you know, and just kind of, whatever, throw whatever at them till it's 5 o'clock and we can go home. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like that. So I always want to give them a good thing. And, you know, because I hate on TV shows, the filler episodes. I know people complain about that on Walking Dead a lot, that half the episodes are fillers. I don't ever want to have a filler episode in my campaign. I want them all to matter. You know, otherwise, why are we there? You know what I mean? We should be moving along like the Star Wars movies. You know, they're maybe the first ones aren't so great, but they're all moving the story along and consequential things are happening. There's not like a filler, you know what I mean?
So I will say a lot of player interaction, right? And they enjoy that. So I never try to rush that, because they, you know, they do a lot of in-character role playing with each other, planning, doing stuff. And, you know, I guess some of that could be like filler as well. But at the same time, I feel like it's important to those players.
Okay. I have a hard time with that. I can't shut up, you know. And Chris Perkins said one of the most important pieces of advice to DMs was talk less, listen more. So I'm always kind of struggling with that, because when the group sits down to plan out, okay, what are we going to do with this? That's when you got to shut up and just let them, because that's where their characters come out. And that's when they kind of do their thing. And I think that's where some of the good memories come from, is where they define their characters and they come up with a wacky scenario. But for me, I'm always watching the clock, because I like to run short games, right? So I just want to keep moving. That comes from 4th edition, where it was like, I want to do 1 encounter every hour. You know, we're doing 5 tonight, so let's go. You know what I mean? And I can't get out of that mindset. So like, I keep catching myself. Like last night I ran Return to the Lizard King, and I was able to just shut up and let them do their thing the way they want to do it. But it's like, as a DM, you don't want it to drag, because a lot of times you'll get a group where nobody really steps up as the leader. So they all submit ideas to each other, but no one makes the final decision. And so that's when the DM has to step in and go, okay, guys, so which thing are you going to do? You know, we got stuff to do. But you want to, it's so hard to pick the moment because you want to give them time to play their characters and play the, you know, do their fun thing. So it's like you have to kind of evaluate where you're at, you know, and like, okay, all right, they've all submitted their ideas, and you look at them and they're kind of like sitting there waiting, and you're like, okay, now's the time where let's crack the whip, you know. So I'm always kind of cracking the whip on people, you know. All right, where do you want to go next? What do you want to do? So I gotta, it's like a real tough balancing act, you know, what being a DM, where it's like you want to get stuff done, but you want to let them play the game, because the game is, they're the stars, right? That's how I see D&D. I'm the director, you know, we're both writing the script together, and they're the stars, you know, and I need to shut up, you know. That's why I don't like DM PCs, you know what I mean? Because I don't, it's about them. So if I introduce an NPC, it's always like a sidekick who's like, you're so awesome, you know what I mean? Or here, have a snack. You know, it's always like a goofy sidekick who supports them or heals them and fills a role that the group needs. And usually the sidekick will die, you know, or whatever, you know. So like last night, Return of the Lizard King is a freaking fantastic adventure by Sean McGovern. It's on the DM's Guild. Every session we have done so far is so great. And last night they freed a bunch of NPC prisoners. And I made it, you know, I run a stupid campaign. So every one of them was really dumb. Like I had a halfling named Marple Mustachio. He was like Mario from Super Mario. And I always like to throw NPCs at people and see which ones take, you know, what the star is going to be. And a lot of times you can never guess, but Marple Mustachio was the one that they were drawn to. And he died. He got eaten by a giant lizard. But they kept his hat. And now old Zebediah, the elven wizard, he wears Marple Mustachio's hat, you know. So.
Oh man, don't get me started on the DM player character. We have so much hate for that in our group. Yeah. But we're starting to get questions are starting to come in. And guys, yes, type the word question before you have a question, because it makes it easy for me to pick them out. Otherwise, I'm likely to skip your questions. Zayurai, I'm not sure how you say that, but you know, I'm about to run Tomb of Annihilation. Any tips? Actually, in the description, you will find Power Score RPG blog, YouTube channel, and also the Tomb of Annihilation companion, which sounds like something would have a lot of tips in it for you, which you can go pick up over on the DM's Guild. And One Bookshelf is an official sponsor of Nerdarchy. You'll also find a coupon code down there as well for purchases of $10 or more, so you can check that out. And so yeah, I would recommend looking at that. I see some more questions.
Well,
what there's a question about how to ask questions, so we got that one checked as well. So this one's Fraginator. If you like to follow the pre-written material, how do you handle players going off the rails? And I think you kind of addressed that with, you know, having a backup scenario in mind.
Yes, and Chris Perkins actually wrote a thing about that in the DM Experience a long time ago, where he made a little graphic showing a straight line, which is the plot you expect, and then another line showing where they go, and it's like up, squiggle, and then maybe they connect back to it at the end. So some of that is like he kind of likened it to driving a horse-drawn chariot, where the players are the horses, and you're trying to whip them and get them to go in the right direction, but they're going to go off sometimes. And that is really tricky when they go off the trail of the adventure. How do you get them back without railroading them? Railroading is such a tricky thing. Sometimes you should railroad, in my opinion, and sometimes you shouldn't. You want to give them at least the illusion of free choice. You know what I mean? Because I think players can kind of tell when, no matter what they do, they're going there. You know what I mean? And it doesn't really, and they can, when a player can see the invisible walls, you know, like in a video game, that hurts the game a lot. You know what I mean? It really, they kind of deflate, and their enthusiasm for the whole thing goes down when they realize that they can't do anything they want. You know, they have to do what you want. That's not good. So yeah, if they go off, you got to do your best to let them, indulge them, but also dangle the thing you want and make it like, oh, this would be pretty good. You know, like whatever they're doing there, if they had this item that's in the main line that you want to run, dangle it and go, well, if you go back over there, you're going to get the thing you need for this, you know? So now, it's very, very tricky. But I would say almost every published adventure, you're going to go off like that. So the best thing to do, if you can, when they go off at the end of that session, ask them, okay, what do you guys want to do next time? right? And so you got to stick to this, okay? Because I'm going to prepare for this. So that way, whatever they say, now you're back on track. You can prepare. You know what I mean? You have all week or however long, and you can just make your own adventure, or here's another thing: you can repurpose a lot of the stuff that's in the adventure. So they go somewhere else. There's another dungeon. You can just use the dungeon from the adventure and maybe change some names and stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's scary, but after a while, it becomes kind of instinctual, and you kind of get some tools for how to handle it. So yeah.
So Tomb of Annihilation does a great job of that, right?
Do you like Tomb? Do you like it?
When I've read through it, yeah, I have not read it all the way through, but when I flip through it, I really do like the feel and everything in there. But one of the things I picked out right away is the fact that they give you ways to tie in your backgrounds and stuff like that to the actual adventure itself, right? And this goes back to how do you keep players from going off the rails?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in any game, the best way is to give them hooks that they're not going to want to set aside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the best way you do that is personalizing those hooks. If you can take them from their backstory, from their backgrounds, wherever you can get them from NPC connections they've made. That is the best way, in my opinion, and that's one of the reasons why I don't run pre-written adventures, because I would want to read the whole thing first and figure out how does this adventure fit my players. So it's a lot of upfront work. That way, if I'm just running, I can do that stuff intuitively on the fly.
That's one of the reasons I write my guides on my site. Is I give you that information up front, so you don't have to read the whole book. I'll give you a quick summary of all the stuff you need to do, all the stuff you need to foreshadow. One of the reasons I write those guides is because there's a lot of new DMs coming in, and I can't imagine. It must be so hard when you get Curse of Strahd or Tomb, and you're a new DM, and you look at the book, and you're like, what do I do with this? Because it's not like, you have to, it's a toolkit. You have to make it. You know what I mean? So what I try to do in the guides is tell people, here's how don't panic. Here's what you need. And I know feels weird, but you can do it, So, but in those first few books, I really wish they would have had just a nice plot summary, But anybody running Tomb, if you want to link the characters to it, I would suggest tying them to the Sohn sisters, if you can, the hags, and try to do more with the Sohn sisters before the group actually gets to the Tomb of the Nine Gods. And I would say also maybe use the trickster gods a bit more, because they are really cool, and they give those boons, which are really fun. And it's like, I've been given the boons throughout the journey instead of waiting till they get to the tomb, And also another thing I'm going to try, and some DMs might want to try this, is some of those rooms in the Tomb of the Nine Gods are just insane. Everybody's going to die. So what I want to do is have them have visions or dreams where they're in that room, and I can let them play through the room one time. And so it's kind of like a way to let them make their mistakes now, and they'll have a better chance of doing it right when they go in. Because there's that one room, the earth, there's these 4 chambers, each tied to an element, and it's insane. And then there's one, I'm going to spoil things for everybody. I don't know if that matters, but there's one where the floor falls out and you fall through this grinder. You take 130 points of damage, and you're just going to die. You're going to die. So that's the one I really want to warn my players in advance. And also in the cog section, I think it's section 4 or something, there's a door that has a face on it, and it just eats you, and there's no roll. You just die, So, those are the things, the landmines that you want to make sure you know about in advance. Like if you're a DM and you're just reading ahead just a little bit, you're not going to be able to be ready for that. And you might get caught flat-footed, because maybe some DMs are okay with them dying like that. But in my experience, like especially in the game store, if you run an encounter like that where there's no roll and they just die, you are in for a very unpleasant aftermath, where they get very upset, and it's not, and it drags the whole night down. So in those cases, you can identify those in advance. If you're going to use it, I would say warn the players, look, there's some stuff in here that it's just going to kill you. There's no die roll. Okay. So be very careful. In that way, you're being fair, and you've given them advance notice. And so you're cutting off that unpleasantness later. They still aren't going to like it. Who would? But it's there, and it's going to be much easier to deal with, So
So we have another question from Luke Porter. How much prep time is appropriate for a pre-written adventure, and is that the same for a home brew adventure?
No. Okay. The rule of thumb is never prepare longer than your session is going to be. So if you have a 2-hour session, you shouldn't be spending more than 2 hours preparing. I break that rule all the time, but I'm kind of obsessive about preparing. But that's the general rule of thumb. And also remember, over preparing is bad. You know what I mean? When you over prepare and you get all these intricate details like mapped out, you kind of subconsciously drive your group to that because you spent so much time on it and you're so excited about the ideas you made, and the game ends up being more rigid. And it's so funny. I don't know. I'm sure most people have experienced this. Where you have a session, you have no time to prepare. So you spend 20 minutes, you just jot stuff down, like 10 sentences, and you're like, all right, this should get me through. And that session is freaking awesome, and it's much better than the ones that you over prepare for. So, don't get too worried about, don't get too worried about getting it exactly right. Being loose as a DM, there's a lot of good things about being loose because you're open to their ideas more than if you over prepare and you're like, you're not doing that. I spent an hour, no, you're going through, you know what I mean? that trap is awesome and you're going in it, you know what I mean? Like, so under preparing isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, unless you're a stickler for keeping it by the book. Remember, you can throw anything out you want when you run an adventure. It's your game. And if you go online and you watch those other Tomb of Annihilation sessions, none of them are the same. They're all vastly different. And everybody brings in their own ideas and concepts, and they tie them to the player's ideas. So really, no published adventure is going to come off the same. So you should feel free to make it your own. What I do, the big thing I do in the published adventures is I go through like if it's a dungeon, I chuck a lot of the rooms. I'm like, because fights with no pointless battles, I'm just done with that. You know what I mean? So I get rid of all those, and it's never hurt the game in any way. So don't worry about changing it or messing with it, and don't worry about making mistakes, because every session, every DM makes mistakes. If you watch Dice Camera Action, you will see Chris Perkins. I swear, Chris Perkins makes mistakes, and I don't mean this as a criticism. He's a great DM. He makes mistakes every episode. One of the last episodes, somebody cast Dimension Door, and he didn't think you could bring anybody with you, but you can bring one person with you. And people had to correct Chris Perkins, who probably wrote the entry of that spell in the player's handbook. So if he can't remember that, that means nobody can remember that, right? So you're just not going to be able to do all the things you need to do to be a perfect DM. So you got to pick the things that are important to you and try to get a good handle on those. And don't worry about so much about the other stuff, because you can't be perfect. You don't need to get down on yourself. To me, in my opinion, there's not that much of a difference between a brand new DM and a DM that's been running for 20 years. The main difference is just when you're a new DM, there's all those little things, those little landmines that you don't know you have to avoid. You kind of have to learn the hard way, So don't get down on yourself, especially, I know I'm getting all ADD on you, but I'm just saying, don't get down on yourself, because people need DMs. I don't know why, but most people don't want to be a DM. I don't know why. At the game store, it was like we had like 40 players and 2 DMs. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, you guys are nuts. DMing is awesome. Being a player is so boring to me. I'm like, what, you want to sit there? You got to sit there. I mean, you gotta take your turn. You gotta wait. When you're a DM, you're just like blah blah blah. You can talk all you want. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. So DMs are like a precious commodity. So don't get too down on yourself, because they need you. And it's hard, but try to look at yourself objectively. When you make a mistake, you know what I mean? Just roll with it as best you can, and don't take it too hard, because it's just a game. If your players keep showing up, you're a good DM. That's the bottom line to me. They're not going to keep coming if your game isn't that good. They will stop. They will go, oh, I can't make it this week. They're going to stop showing up, all right? And if that happens, don't take it like it's the end of the world. Just if you can, just ask them, what were the things that I should do differently, and then work on them. That's it. People need you, so don't quit. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun.
I love doing a postmortem of my game sessions with players. Like, that used to be the thing, play Saturday, call Monday, be like, hey, what did you think? What did you like? What did you not like? And And we say the same thing pretty much, is like, you need more GMs and you're gonna suck when you start. Don't worry about it. Keep going. You're gonna get better. You can only get better. You gotta do it. And maybe you're awesome right from the bat, but we'll never know unless you get out there and try it. And you said one of my favorite phrases. It's just a game,
right?
People, like, it's a very big part of my life, but it's not life itself. It's a game. We enjoy it. We do it to have fun. It should be about the people at the table more so than the game itself. I mean,
yeah,
people matter. Games don't. All right. At the end of the day, we love the game, but it's just not the most important thing. It's what brings us all together.
It's a great way, in my opinion, to socialize. You're in a safe place. You're probably not, well, some people are drinking, but you're probably not doing drugs. You're not getting stabbed or whatever. You're just sitting at a table having fun with your friends, and to me, that's really what it's all about, So when I write my summaries, of my session, I always include like the funny stuff that people did, because years later, when you read it again, that's the stuff you actually laugh at. It's not so much like, oh, I did 20 points of damage to a beholder. It's like, oh yeah, remember when he farted, that kind of thing. Like, I have a photo of my friend Randy. He was a weird guy. He's sitting at the table, like he's got a sheet over his head pretending to be a ghost, and we're all sitting there like, because he did that every week, and so none of us are reacting at all, and it's the most bizarre photo. There's a ghost at the table. We're all just like, okay, Randy, we got it,
Well,
and those are the things, when I go back to the summary and I look at that picture, that's the stuff I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I saved that, because that's kind of what it's all about, is and just this, and you're creating a movie together or a TV show, and it's your own little thing just between you guys, and you have your little in-jokes. And to me, that's the big appeal of D&D. I think that's what everybody who came to the game store, ultimately, that's what they were looking for, was a group of friends to have in-jokes with, and to get into crazy stuff in the game. That's really what every single person was looking for when it came down to it,
and that's the thing too, like, and why GMs need to kind of let go a little bit when players are doing stuff and just let them do their thing, because it's never the thing, like we've said it a time and time again, it's never the thing that you came up with as the GM that's going to be the most memorable thing at the table. Probably it's going to be that time that one crazy player was jumping from beholder to beholder, as the wizard, and casting spells.
Mm-hmm.
Or the time that the player, that same player, forgot that you don't run out of cantrips, so he disarmed the thug and then stabbed him with his own knife just because the dice were with him that night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good stuff. So Kyle Ellis has a question. Should I finish making D&D YouTuber town of Outcast, or should a caravan of Misfit Wanderers work better? Honestly, that just depends on the game you're running. Are they going to be in town, or are they going to be running into people on the road?
Yeah. Ask them.
Yeah. So I'm just catching up with the questions here. I probably should have. I was listening to you instead of seeing what they're.
I'm sorry. I can't stop talking. So
no worries, man. That's a great guest. If I can go out to lunch and come back and the chat is perfect.
You'll come back and I'm on a totally different topic too.
Yeah. We got Trump Perry. Question. I'm leaning towards a homebrew for a one-shot for some friends who never played tabletop before. How in-depth should I go with actual game mechanics? Here's the thing. Like, you can go in-depth with game mechanics, and new players are great, right? Matter of fact, I prefer if they have less information in front of them than more, because I'm kind of like, just tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you what to roll.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I learn games that way too. I'm like, don't throw a bunch of rules at me and mechanics, because I'm not gonna remember it all.
Some people will be pushed away.
Yeah,
if you just throw like a half hour of numbers at them. So yeah, I would say exactly what you said. Definitely, just kind of say, okay, you're there. What do you do? Because that's kind of the fun of D&D, is you can do whatever you want. So you kind of, and you can teach them as they try to do things. I want to do this. Okay, you roll, or most of the time you don't roll. You say, and I tell you their reaction. So that's how I would do it. Don't put too much work into it. Let them kind of just throw some fun things in there, and just see what they do. New players are awesome. They always have the best ideas. So, and the first 8 sessions, I call it the golden time. You can do no wrong in those first 8 sessions, because they're they're just so excited about D&D, and as they learn and learn, and the golden time usually ends when they see the invisible walls, you know, or they see the limitations. So I mean, and that's gonna happen, you know. But you know, those first 8 sessions, you got it made. Just whatever you do, they're gonna be like, wow, because they're seeing this is not like a video game. You can literally do whatever you want, and so they're just going nuts in those first sessions. You know, they love it. So
that is the appeal, you know. But then they don't understand certain things too, like why can't I just go murder the townsfolk?
yeah, there's consequences. Yeah, that's definitely.
Well, you can. It's just the watch doesn't like that. Hey guys, let's jump into the roll call and sound off where you're coming from. We got like 80 people hanging out with us today. I guess people are home from work. Sounds good to me. Mike Thompson, is there a go-to published adventure that you use? Do you ever rerun the same adventure?
No, I do not. I hate doing that because in my campaign, well, I have done that, but I hate doing it because in my campaign, everything counts. So if I run White Plume Mountain, whatever they did in there is what happened. And anybody who goes there on my map, that they're going to see the wreckage, you know, where we'll build from there. So I don't like to do that, but I know that most DMs do. And there's been times where I ran something so poorly when I was 12 that it doesn't really count. You know what I mean? So I actually ran White Plume twice, once when I was a kid and once a few years ago for a bunch of little kids at the game store. And it was like the greatest. It was the greatest thing ever. I loved every moment of that game. So yeah, I don't run them more than once, but you can. I mean, you know, it's no big deal. But in my campaign, I knew from the first moment I ran D&D that I wanted everything to occur on my world. Everything mattered. You know, the gods of my campaign are all former characters. So I started with one world, then I got Spelljammers, then I made my crystal sphere in my universe, you know, and then, you know, in Spelljammer, you can go to the other settings. So everything that I run everywhere counts, and any character could meet with any other character. And for me, I like to say my campaign is the alternate universe. You know, I kind of consider Chris Perkins' game the official D&D campaign, and mine is one step to the side in the multiverse. You know, I've got my alternate universe, you know. So if there's a Crisis of Infinite Earths, you know, and I actually have an alternate universe version of the Waffle Crew from Dice Camera Action, and Evelyn, who I love. And I could talk about, I think Anna Prosser Robinson is the best D&D player on the planet. And so I have her, Evelyn, and mine is a paladin of the Raven Queen rather than Lathander. And she lives in Sigil in Planescape. So yeah, I run them. I just run them one time.
I just want to say you're such a nerd. It's awesome.
I'm done. You know, I'm done with here's what, okay. When people talk about D&D and they talk about being nerdy, and it's like people apologize for playing D&D. To me, D&D is not nerdy. If you watch people who watch football, listen to them talk and listen to the announcers. The announcer goes, they have a 30% of converting on third down. I don't know if he's going to make it, if this is a good call. You know, and other people are like, well, he's not really playing the angles right. And if you listen to what they're talking about in football, it's math, okay? It's nerdy. It's just as nerdy as D&D. I think if you're hardcore into anything, technically, that's nerdy. And to me, it's like, you're an enthusiast of whatever you like. And at this point, there's so many people into things that used to be called geeky that it's mainstream. Like Avengers movies are the most popular thing there is, you know, and
it's awesome, man.
It's just life now. You know what I mean? It's not. I feel you don't need to apologize for playing D&D. When I worked at the toy store, I was a manager at a toy store, right? And I had all these. My employees were like, you know, high school kids, a lot of beautiful girls and cool guys, you know, and they were all great people. And I would tell them D&D stories, and as soon as I would tell them some perverted, weird story about D&D, they'd go, "You can do that in D&D?" And I would go, "You can do anything you want in D&D." And that's when they all light up and they all say, "I want to try that." You know, D&D is cool. It's just as cool as anything else. It's just, and what's nice about Critical Role is it gives you a nice way to explain it to people. You can say, it's kind of like improv acting at a table. Okay. So that, you know, it's also guys, you know, eating Cheetos and whatever, and drinking root beer, but it's also improv acting. You know what I mean? So, and you know, fantasy football, what's geekier than that? You know what I mean? I don't know. D&D is not nerdy to me. It's just a fun thing to do. And in my opinion, it's much better than watching a movie with your friends because you can't talk to each other. You just have to sit there. And then when you're done, you go out to eat and you talk about it for a little bit and you go home. In D&D, you're making your movie. you know, and you're socializing the whole time. To me, it's a much more fun, creative endeavor. You're creating something. You know, you go to see a movie, you just saw the movie, big deal. But when in D&D, you created a TV show together that you starred in. You know, there's no comparison to me. That D&D is much, much better.
So I think we have a rogue link out there somehow. I'm not sure how.
Is this like anonymous hacking in? Are they gonna make some
maybe more likely though, either you or I shared the actual join link somewheres.
Man, that would be horrible if I tweeted that out.
It's possible.
I probably did.
No worries. Never happened to me.
Please don't click the link on my Twitter.
So I'm going to jump into the roll call now. We got Doug in Cleveland. We've got Jacob Stokes in Monroe, Louisiana. We got Forrest Lauderdale in the house with Sean. We've got Adam in Kansas. The OZ in the house with Raven. Lincoln's coming to us from Sweden. We got Blamby in Sweden as well. Dallas with Ed Does Everything. Ghetto Stabulous is in Louisiana. True Mate is in Wales. Zareth Gaming, Redizio, New Mexico. Niagara Falls with Rich. We got Mike in Maryland. We got Indiana in the house with Martin. Underwood Sketches is in Missouri. We got Massachusetts in the house. Comrade 2261. He had to duck out early, but Kyle Ellis has got his back. We've got England in the house as well with Mike. We got Shounder in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. We got more UK with, and I lost it. It's gone forever. We got more UK with Graham Rigg. We've got Virginia in the house with Grant Ellis. We got Kyle coming to us from British Columbia, Cape Canaveral, Florida with Meat Moo. We've got Europa with Mike. We also have Ventura, California with Jimmy. Elfbait is in Edmonds, Washington. We've got Georgia in the house with Tavaraza. We got Michigan in the house with Walter. Frigginators in Washington. Ireland is in the house with Zaria. Granite Falls, Washington, Frigginator. We've got HD Dashwood with Germany. And we talked a lot, so now they're probably going to go back into, yes, there's another run of it somewhere. Is Mexico with Fernando. Casey in Austin. Minnesota in the house with Evil Silly Putty. Amsterdam with Tilda. That might be our first Amsterdam. We've got New York City Subway in the house with Torquan Perry. Vegas is here with Armando. So it's always cool. We got people coming in from all over the place. We've been hanging out with about 80 people in the chat, give or take a few.
My favorite name is Ghetto Stabulous.
It is pretty amazing.
You won. Okay, I don't know what you get, but you won something.
Frigginator, I said your name twice because I was just reading.
Frigginator. All right.
Yeah.
Well, any more questions they have?
Oh, I'm sure there is a bunch in here. Once I started jumping around, they've been pretty prolific. Grant Ellis has got a question.
Ooh, all right.
Grant will be on the Friday, this Friday as well.
Awesome.
Which DM Guild products are your favorites and add to your current campaign or past campaign?
Favorite DM's Guild products. Okay. I deleted my tweet. So it's done.
Oh, you found the culprit.
There will be no more invaders.
It keeps things interesting.
My brain doesn't work right. So okay. Favorite DM's Guild products. Okay. Return of the Lizard King by Sean Merwin. That's a DM's Guild adept thing. It's one of probably my favorite 5e adventure that there is. Assault on Mara Midra. I think that's on the DM's Guild. That's a Out of the Abyss Adventurers League adventure where you attack Grozit, and there's some really cool stuff in there. Like there's a nursery where there's a nurse watching 13 of Grozit's babies, and they're all from different creatures. Like there's a fire giant baby and Jungle Treks was very good. I learned a lot from reading that. The Tropical Harpies is to me one of the best ideas for just the idea of a tropical harpy. I mean, to me that's like that should be in Tomb of Annihilation, right? There's no, and actually, I gotta say the Rudy Rutenberg Adventurers League adventure that just came out, A Day at the Races, is probably one of my favorite things there is. I can't wait to run it. It's so awesome, you know. So those are the things that come off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more, but yeah. Also, my Litany of Arrows adventure path, which you can find right now in the DM's Guild. So those are very fantastic as well. Yeah, don't you want a flying castle, everybody? I know you do.
Who doesn't want a flying castle or 3?
Yeah, and you can go through Americall's Ooze Chambers, an Ooze themed dungeon where I used all the Ooze lore I could find, slapped it all into one dungeon. Weird stuff from first edition mostly.
So Zaref Gaming has a weird question. I'm not quite sure what he means by this.
Okay.
You prefer adventure or module? Unless you're talking about what to call them.
I still say module.
Yeah, it's definitely a holdover from, like AD&D, I think.
I wouldn't call the book adventures modules, but I would call a module a module. And a box set is a box set to me,
Well, and they've morphed too. It's changed since when we started the hobby, because now you're getting these awesome books that are basically like they're full campaigns pretty much. By the time you run through these things, you're about done or you're close to it. Yeah. Where before, they were all small. It was a session or 2, maybe 3 for the bigger ones, but they progressively have gotten bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. Can we swear on this or no?
Yeah, we can swear. It's been known to happen.
I'm not going to do it. I just wanted to
know. Just a litany of profanity now.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, or can I ramble?
We got one from Mike Thompson. I'm kind of working backwards now to get the questions that I kind of like blew past. Oh no, we're back to where I started from. Now I have to figure out where I'm going. You can ramble, that's fine. We were talking a lot before we even got started about like some of our differences where you like to run pre-written stuff, and Nerdarchy, we just stuff. Matter of fact, my partner Ted, a lot of times when he runs, the more he writes, like the worse the session is.
That's funny, huh? I'm amazed at anybody who can run a game with very little preparation. That's
coming back to me. So we must be doing something right.
Actually, I was thinking, have you read the official adventures like Horde, Princes of the Apocalypse, Out of the Abyss?
We do not. We just kind of like pick through.
Okay, well, I would like to rank them from worst to best. Are you ready?
Right, here we go.
All right, I'm gonna go, and I don't mean to bash them. All of them have awesome stuff you can pull out of them. And
I will say one thing to add to your list before you start it.
Yeah.
Is that the stuff that Wizards of the Coast are doing themselves, I feel is way better than the stuff that came before. At a glance, aside from maybe Out of the Abyss. Out of the Abyss has got a lot of good stuff to steal.
Wait, all right. So you're saying the 5th edition adventures are better than previous editions?
No. The early stuff, Rise of like from Strahd on, Wizards of the Coast did in-house.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
And before that, it was all outsourced.
And what's weird is like Tyranny of Dragons was by I don't know how to say his last name, Wolfgang Bauer. Okay. I love that guy. He's so awesome. When I bought Dungeon Magazine, he did all the cool stuff, and I think he was the editor for a while, and I loved his issues. So he and Steve Winter, I think, did Horde and Rise of Tiamat. And I kind of feel like those adventures get kind of unfairly picked on because the first chapter is unbalanced. So people went to play and they all got killed by the kobolds, And obviously that's a sour, and it's like, why wasn't this
kobold press? Of course he's going to beat your ass with kobolds.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of, that adventure, I think, just suffered from the fact that it was the first, and they probably didn't play test it enough. And also, Steve Winter made some and I love Steve Winter. He made some comments that I was kind of shocked by. Where he talked about how, because in the first chapter, you can duel this Dragonborn guy, and there's pretty much no chance you can beat him because he's so much more powerful. And Steve Winter put that in on purpose to show players that you can't beat everything. Or something, he said something to that effect, and I'm like, if you run in a game store, you know how that's going to come off. People are going to be mad. You know, there's a lot of, and I mean, when you go to a game store, a lot of the players are awesome, but some of them are there because nobody can put up with them in real life. And the only way they can play D&D is to go to the game store where I have to run for you if you sit down, you know? So you're going to get one of those sometimes. And those people are the controller throwing video game players, you know, where they get real mad at the video game and they scream and break stuff. And when you get one of those at your table, and you run that encounter, the night is ruined. You know what I mean? And so I felt kind of like that first chapter was like, there was some, and you know, and the response to that was, well, tough. They have to learn. They never learn. That's the problem. They never learn and they keep coming. Okay. So spare me, you know, just don't do it to me. Okay. Because I don't want to go through this again, you know, because the game stores don't like to kick people out. You know what I mean? So you're kind of stuck, you know? And yeah, so what that is actually, when you put stuff like that in, it drives me out of the store because it's like, oh God, I'm not doing it, you know? So either you change it or you're, oh God, let's see what happens, you know? So
do you have any horror stories from running that encounter?
Oh, do I have horror stories? Whew. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I've written, that's actually why I started the guide, writing about what it's really like to run in a game store, because online nobody talks about it, but in real life when you talk to people they all go, oh yeah. Sometimes running in a game store is fantastic, and the great thing is you meet all these great people. I ran 3 games a week for 6 years in a game store, so I met I had a pool of players and I would pull them from my different campaigns at home, you know, and I ended up with this huge group of people and they were all awesome and we did all sorts of fun stuff. But also at the store there was people who were just like, people would leave if they sat down at the table. And there was one person, I don't want to be mean, where I would meet people in real life and I would tell them I play D&D and they'd go, you know, I tried to play that one time at the store and there was this person and they described them and I knew exactly who they were talking about. And that happened to me multiple times. That one person drove like 20 to 30 people out of D&D forever because they were so unpleasant to play with. And I had one guy in one game who, people get, I would say about 20% or 25% of players get angry at their die rolls. And some of them get really angry, you know? And to me, it's like, just don't play because you're always going to roll bad sometimes. And if you can't handle it, you just shouldn't be playing this game. And I had one guy who like, he would roll bad and he went into the bathroom and punched a wall. Somebody took his character and threw him through a door, you know, and he almost attacked the kid in real life, you know? And players counting down from 10, you know, like a lot of people playing D&D have flaws, you know, everybody has flaws. I'm not perfect, you know, I'm sure I've done a lot of stupid, mean things or whatever, but there's got to be a limit to the behavior, you know what I mean? And there's really not. In the store that I was in, the owner would not kick anybody out. That's ultimately why I had to leave. I had this great group of kids, this 9-year-old girl who played Dark the Dragon Sorceress, one of the most legendary characters ever. And I had to stop, you know, I just had to stop. So it's a real bummer.
You would think at a certain point they would realize they're hurting their store and their customer base by not getting rid of toxic people.
Yeah, they don't. Well, the one mine didn't.
Game, right? You should be able to get yellow cards and red cards and be like, you're out.
Yes, but you know, a lot of people are afraid of conflict or confrontation, you know, and also in that store, the person who was driving people out was one of their best customers. So they didn't want to, you know what I mean, lose the person who spent the most in the store. But it was like, dude, you're losing hundreds of other customers because of this person, you know? So game store is rough, man. I mean, it's sometimes it's great and sometimes it's horrible. It all depends. If you can pick your players, it's going to be awesome. But if the store's, and you know, there's that one table where the store dumps all the annoying players at one table, you're going to want to kill yourself. You're never coming back if you have to run a game for them, because they will ruin your passion for D&D, you know, so fast.
I'm just envisioning either the store owner or, you know, whoever's running the store going, watch, this is going to be fun as shit.
Oh, no, the store owner ended up running that game and it was messed up. I don't want to badmouth the guy, but he left the table all the time. So most of the 3 hours they're supposed to be playing, he's at the register and they're just sitting there, you know. It's like, is this really the way? You know what I mean? Just this whole thing is messed up, you know. And, you know, it's not easy to deal with that kind of thing. And I get it, but something, you know what I mean? I wish it could have been so much better, you know? We had such a good thing going at that store. I feel really bad, and I love those kids so much. It killed me to stop running for them, you know, but I had to do it.
So what about that list we were talking about?
Okay, ready?
Ready.
I don't. There. I hate being negative. Okay, every single adventure has stuff worth taking. Just it's a caveat, you know. But the worst to me probably be Princes of the Apocalypse, because the first 25% is kind of boring, and that's the part that almost everybody's going to play, and they're probably going to quit before they get to the dungeons. And the other problem is you could end up walking into a dungeon, like a dungeon meant for 8th level characters when you're 3rd level or something, you know, and your group's going to die. You know what I mean? And it's like, so I personally, as a player, would love that. I would love to be in over my head. And it's so exciting to me, but I don't care if I die, you know, it's not the end of the world to me. A lot of people don't want their character to die, you know, and I get it, you know, but that was a big problem. So that adventure, Prince of the Apocalypse, was just kind of the elemental cults, for whatever reason, in D&D have never really come together right. You know, they don't feel exciting. You know what I mean? They're always kind of like, it should be cooler than it is. That's how it feels. You know, the 4 prophets running them, like the air person had wings, and there's the male Medusa who ran the Earth cult. That should have been cooler than it was. I don't know why that didn't. It just didn't feel right. But the dungeon itself is really cool, and the great thing about that dungeon is you can pull rooms and whole dungeons out and use them however you want. It's perfect for that. There's a ton of mini dungeons, and the nodes are fantastic. The fire node is really great with the weeping colossus at the end. That's great. So that is the one I like the least. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, maybe you should write that product and re-envision those cults the way you feel they should be.
I'm so swamped. I'm supposed to be writing a Miracle's Guide to Demons, and I want to get that out before the end of the year. And I've got about 60% of it done, but I still have a lot of work to do. So it's kind of like, I should do that, though. That is a great idea. All right, and then Out of the Abyss, I would say, is the second from the bottom. Again, tons of cool ideas. The slime dungeon is fantastic. The Whispering Library is really, really cool. The idea of Dweeblex as a random encounter is like the greatest thing ever, you know? And there's the Purple Worm dungeon I was so impressed with. It's like, you know, nobody uses purple worms that much, and they really came up with some great ideas. And the maze engine from the Modrons, it was a cool idea. It didn't work when I ran it, but you can tweak it to make it work. And it's such a fantastic idea. I think it's worth pulling out. But the problem with Out of the Abyss was you're in the Underdark the whole time. You're trying to get out. You get out halfway through, and I could just tell groups are going to not want to go back down. We got out. That was the point. What do we got to go back down for? And it just didn't make sense to me that you have like 9 demon lords stomping around in the Underdark for 8 months, and they're not. What are they doing down there? You know what? I mean, what's going on? You know, are they just down there forever? I mean,
they're playing rummy, you know.
And Menzo Berenson is right there, and why aren't we all? You know, I don't get it. So the whole thing just felt a lot of good ideas in there. Oh, and Gracklestug to me was the worst chapter in any D&D book yet, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I just feel like it wasn't finished. You know, it's disorganized and doesn't really make sense, and it's so long, and it was hell for me to write my guide and go through it, and like try to put it together, and I couldn't put it together. I couldn't figure out what was supposed to, the whole thing was supposed to work, and they had this cool idea with a dragon that they didn't use, and it's like, why did you mention the dragon and then not use it, you know? So that was the second worst, I would say. I have a kind of a soft spot for Tyranny of Dragons, so that I would say that's third, because it's really good if you clean it up. You know, you got to get rid of those assassins. You got to change chapter 1, and chapter 4 will kill your game if you're not careful. The travel section, you should just gloss over that. Do that in one session. You know, just okay, 7 days pass, boom. You know, 14 days. They say, you know, just drop a couple encounters and just go to the next chapter, because that will kill your campaign. It's killed many campaigns from what I can tell. The final fight with Tiamat was also not great. The room was weird, and in Scales of War in 4th edition, they had a final fight with Tiamat, which was like it's the greatest thing ever. And I wish more people knew about Scales of War, because it's so fantastic, And that final adventure where you attack Tiamat's lair and you fight her 5 mates, oh, it's so cool. And she's up on this platform held up by a column of lava, you know, and you got to go up there and fight her riding Bahamut's golden dragons, you know? I mean, and so you go from that to a temple where there's 5 cultists flying and chanting, you know, and Tiamat might come out. If you kill them fast enough, Tiamat doesn't come out. Oh, what a great ending that is. She should be already popping out as you come in, not, you know, well, good, we killed that cultist with his 30 hit points. So now we don't, that's the end. We're done with the campaign. You know, and that's like, it rubbed me the wrong way. And also getting to Tiamat in that final chapter, you have to go through this really lame, boring dungeon. It's like empty. It's like, why is this here? You know, because you have this mass combat with armies fighting. You're fighting alongside giants against dragons and dragon cultists. And instead of wading through that, which I know would be difficult to write, but I was able to do it, right? You go in a dungeon underneath the battle. So there's cool battles going on, and you're in a dungeon fighting like 3 guards, you know, like no, you know. So, but if you change the stuff in Tyranny, it's a great adventure. It really is. And so the second best one I would say is Curse of Strahd. I know a lot of people would say it's first. It's just personally for me, I'm not that into horror D&D. It's cool. And I've never been, you know, Strahd's all right. He's not, you know what I mean? It's not that great, you know? And the other thing about Curse of Strahd was, how many times are we going to, you know, there was Ravenloft, then there was the second edition Ravenloft box set. You know what I mean? And then there was Expedition to Castle Ravenloft. How many times are we going to play the same adventure? You know, and it's just like, and he expanded stuff, and he took cool, weird ideas from like Dungeon and Dragon, and, you know, put it all together. But it's just like, I don't know, you know, it's like padded out.
Just remember, for a lot of people, that's their first Ravenloft. So
yeah, true. But it just felt very padded out. That's what I think got me. Like Argon Vostholt to me was like, I don't know, it just didn't do anything for me. The werewolves felt out of place. The winery felt kind of dull. I love Baba Lysaga, and I wish they had done more. I don't know what else you could do, but I wish they would have done more with her. The Amber Temple is freaking fantastic. And I think that's, I know I've told this story in my blog. I talked to Chris Perkins on the phone one time. In 4th edition, you could call, because I think they were trying to find out what's going on. Why is this not working? So you could call D&D and they would talk to you and you could tell them about your game. So I called and Chris Perkins picked up. And so for 1 hour, I talked to Chris Perkins about my campaign. I was crapping my pants. I was so excited. And he was telling me about his home campaign and how he uses Vecna. And I think he told me about the Amber Temple. And so years later, the Amber Temple's in Curse of Strahd. And I was like, oh, you know, and, you know, in 2nd edition, I don't know if you remember, in Ravenloft, the dark powers of Ravenloft control the mists, right? And nobody ever knew who the dark powers were. In the Amber Temple, I think those vestiges in the bottom are the dark powers of Ravenloft. And some of them he took from old products. Like he took Shami Emere, he took Tenebris, which is the dead side of Orcus, you know, and so he put a bunch of dead gods from old products in the Amber Temple. And I'm like, those are the dark powers. I mean, that is so cool. So Curse of Strahd has a lot of stuff that I felt was kind of waste of time, and some of it is really fantastic. I mean, the castle's great, you know, but it's hard to run.
You know what I like that they did in there? I like the way they did the NPCs, like the way they statted them, and how instead of just cloning a character class, they gave them cool and interesting abilities that were unique to that NPC.
I would say one of my favorite D&D monsters is the witches in that book. I don't know why. I really love them. They're low level. They cast some cool spells. They have great art. Really cool. Castle Ravenloft is awesome, but you know how they gave you that poster map? And on one side, there's the map of Barovia. And on the other side is an isometric, like sideways angled map of Castle Ravenloft. And it's gigantic. And I guess you're meant to run the dungeon, referring to that map. How can you refer to that map in play? If you put it on the table, the players are going to see all the traps and everything like that. And if you hold this giant poster map up while you run the game, that's just not going to work. So it's like, this map is cool, but it's a waste of poster map space, in my opinion. I wish they would do a little more of like in 4th edition where they would make a battle map, you know, because most of the time in Castle Ravenloft is spent in the basement with the crypts. And that would make for a great map, you know? It's just a bunch of crypts, and it's like they're all different. And I thought that would have been a better way to do it. So Curse of Strahd, you know what? No, I say that, though. But I think Curse of Strahd is a classic adventure. I think it's going to be remembered as a classic. Like, I mean, you know, like Right Hand of Doom. and Tomb of Horrors, in that vein, I think Curse of Strahd is the one. Now, me, the favorite, the best one is Tomb of Annihilation. And I compare them like this. I say Curse of Strahd is like Citizen Kane, and Tomb of Annihilation is Jurassic Park, that's my. So like Tomb of Annihilation is the blockbuster that everybody likes, but Curse of Strahd is the one that's going to endure and be regarded like as a serious, just like a masterpiece kind of D&D. But Tomb might feel the same way actually, because there's a lot of great stuff in Tomb. The problems with Tomb, Port 9 Zaru is a little. New DMs are gonna be like, what do I do? You're in Port 9 Zaru, and you know what? Nobody's doing the dinosaur races, which really bothers me. Everybody should do the dinosaur race. It's worth doing. I know it's a little too vague, but you can make it work, and it's worth doing. So, and in the first Adventurers League adventure, they have a new system for it that I think is a little better. And in my companion, this is another version as well, but I don't care. Buy it if you want. And so I wish people would use the dinosaur races. I wish there was a more concrete way to get into everything. The jungle is cool, but it's so big, and DMs are gonna like the DMs who take it day by day. Their campaigns are probably gonna die because that's really boring. Because it takes like at least 30 days, and if you do the rolls every day where the group gets lost, that's gonna get real messy. You know what I mean? And it's just you can't roll those random. I don't think you can roll random encounter charts every day at the table. I just don't think that's going to work, because you're going to roll a monster you know nothing about. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go look it up, and everybody's just sitting there. You know what I mean? So, but once you get into the and also the Wan-Ti dungeon, I think it's just not. I know people say you're not meant to go through it, but most people are going to go through it like it's a dungeon, and to have that dungeon. That dungeon before the Tomb of the Nine Gods, that just makes no sense to me, just no sense. And then you also have the shrines, which are so cool in Omu. The trapped shrines are fantastic. So it's like you got these cool trapped shrines, you got the tomb, and sandwiched in there is this like Wan-Ti dungeon where it's, and then the bad guy Ras Nissi that they all know is in all the artwork. He's like, oh, he's just kind of there, and he won't necessarily attack. He might be your friend, and it's like, really, guys, this cool looking guy, and he's just kind of like, hey, there's this lady who's giving me problems. You want to help? It's like, come on, man. It's Ras Nissi. I want a huge fight, an epic fight, and you don't get it. But once you get in the tomb, it's fantastic. Almost every room is worth running. It's Tomb of the Nine Gods is a fantastic dungeon. The final room is so epic. It is a fantastic, and the Stone Sisters, I wish they would have done more with them, but they're very cool, and you can use them in a lot of different ways. So, did I talk too much? Sorry.
No, they're asking what about Storm King's Thunder, but we are right up on that hour mark. We're actually past.
I would say it's
bring you back to talk about it.
All right, Storm King's Thunder is third from the best. I personally don't really like it. No offense to anybody else. It's kind of giants are kind of boring. I'm kind of done with giants. I wish they would have put some new types of giants in there, like death giants or abyssal giants. But hill giants just do nothing for me. You know what I mean?
They're virtually interchangeable with ogres.
But that said, the giant dungeons are fantastic. Especially, I love the Frost Giant dungeon. I love it. So there's a lot of good stuff to use. And you know what? Actually, that kind of underwater cloud, I think the cloud, what is storm giants or something underwater? That's such a cool place, and the final fight with Imra is fantastic. Even if you don't run the adventure, pull that out. Anytime you need a dragon fight, I mean, that's going to be a great session. That'll probably be 2 sessions. It's fantastic. So every single book is worth getting just because there's stuff you can take out, tons of stuff you can take out, even if the adventure maybe is kind of weak overall. There's so much great stuff in each one, and that's really the nice thing about 5th, is that it's not crap across the board. It's like, it's pretty good. I would still say, though, Pathfinder paths are a million times better. I would much rather run a Pathfinder path in 5e than, to me, Skull and Shackles, the adventure path, is a million times better than any adventure that's come out in 5th. That's like not even close. Some of my favorite adventures of all time are in Skull and Shackles. Curse of the Crimson Throne, to me, is a fantastic path. And from what I've read of Hell's Rebels, which I'm dying to run, that looks so awesome. And I don't mean to badmouth D&D. I love D&D. And I do like all these adventures. I'm just saying, for me personally, the adventure paths work because it's more linear. I have to do less work. It's like they might go off the path, but, at least I have set pieces and, scenarios, in the 5e books. It's left to you. They just give you 2 paragraphs. Oh, there's there's a bad guy in a cart, and they'll do whatever they want anyway. And it's like in Pathfinder, it's like it explodes and there's a speech. And you got to make a forward roll and make a skill check. And it's just like much more exciting to me. That's all.
5e is definitely a throwback to older styles of D&D where they really seem to be trying to push more onto the GM and give the GM more control of the game.
And here's the other thing: I criticize it, but it's working. So I am in the minority, and they should keep doing what they're doing because obviously it's working. D&D is huge; it's fantastic, and it keeps getting bigger, right?
So the problem with a system that's so well defined, like Pathfinder is, as a GM, the players then use all that definition and rules and
I hate the rules.
That's a bludgeon. So
I hate the Pathfinder rules. I just love the adventures. That's all.
So good writing. All right, guys. Check out Power Square RPG blog. Check out the YouTube channel by the same name, and there's a link to the Tomb of Annihilation Compendium. But you can use that to get to find all your other great stuff over there on the DM's Guild. And I appreciate if you use that link because One Bookshelf, which is DM's Guild, Drive Through RPG, they're one of our sponsors. It helps to let them know that we're doing our job and talking about their stuff. With that, guys, until next time, stay nerdy. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out.